Hi everyone, it's Nicole Spohr here and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be creating this Koala Hugs card with Tombow dual brush markers. Not only are we going to be coloring the brand new Mama Elephant Koala Hugs images with no line coloring, but we're also going to be coloring in the die cut leafy cover with Tombow markers. Let's start by stamping our adorable koala images from this Koala Hugs stamp set. On the screen you can see not only the stamp set, but there's some little agenda koala images as well. I'm not using those for my card today, but do stay tuned. A little later this month I will have some cards with this set as well as the new kangaroo set. I've stamped my images on this scrap of Arch's cold press watercolor cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jellyfish no line coloring ink. I have received quite a few questions lately about no line coloring ink. I have used several different ones and I still do, but I would say probably 95% of the time I use this Lawn Fawn no line coloring ink. It is fantastic. You can see that you get a really good outline with it, even on a more textured watercolor type of cardstock. Now, I am not incorporating water into my coloring today. I'm simply using the Tombow dual brush markers as markers and shading with those. I generally prefer to lay down the dark color first and then blend out with the lighter color. This always seems to work really well whether I'm using Tombow markers or the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. Part of the reason I didn't incorporate any water, you could always take a water brush pen or a paintbrush dipped in water and kind of do more shading if you want, or give a little bit more of a watercolored effect and look. But I feel like some of these images are pretty teeny tiny. I don't think I have the best control with water when coloring in these images, and so I generally will use my shading just with the markers here, and it works wonderfully. Across the top of the screen, I have listed the marker colors I'm using. If at any time you're curious exactly what colors I'm using to color in an image, you can find that information there, as well as clicking on the link to the blog post that coordinates with this video underneath the video here on YouTube. I always provide a link to the blog post, so if you want to see additional images or find out those lists of marker colors, no matter what marker medium I'm using, that is a great resource. After I've colored in the images, I like to take a fine tip black pen and add in the eye detail. Now, I would highly suggest waiting a minute for the markers to dry. You don't have to wait a super long time. These are water-based markers, and so they stay wet for a little bit. I would just say maybe a few minutes. I accidentally colored that small image of the koala hanging from a branch, and I went ahead and colored in the eye, or traced in the eye immediately, and it kind of bled a little bit. And so I used the Creative Couture Detailer tool to kind of erase that. I added the coloring back in, and then I will trace back over that eye detail after a bit. I'm going to wait clear until I'm done coloring. The other thing I want to note is that the koala with the little one hanging over its shoulder holding on to that branch, I accidentally colored in the hand with green. And so I ended up stopping coloring that, and I'm going to restamp it and color that in. It was really bothering me, and with green there was no way to fix that mistake, so I just stopped coloring and added the color. These were really quick and easy images to color. I know I usually try to give you hints and tips for fixing things, and sometimes there is simply not a way to fix anything like that, like a coloring mistake like that. These are such cute images. What a fantastic addition to the Mama Elephant collection. Once I have all of my coloring done for these guys, and you'll notice I am taking my lightest gray here, which is in 89. I'm adding some little dots for texture to my koalas. And then, of course, when the markers have dried, I am adding the eyes back in so their faces really pop. I'm going to take the coordinating dies and die cut these guys, and then we are going to work on building the background scene to add these to. For the background scene today, there's a brand new leafy cover. Now, you can use this to build a scene, or you could use this as a beautiful, elegant kind of die cut background. For example, I think it would be lovely to add just a stamped or die cut sentiment in the center. There is a lot of ways to use this. There's a lot of ways to color this. It is a beautiful new die, so much detail to it. I did die cut mine from the Arches cold press watercolor cardstock, and I'm going to color them in with the Tombow dual brush markers, and this time I am going to incorporate a water brush pen. So I'm laying down sap green, then light olive, and I'm taking my water brush pen and pulling those colors out into each area. You're going to notice that I'm going to color like little sections at a time. Pull the water out, and the water does get on my glass work surface, and I want to be really careful I'm not getting that into the border of my card. I am going to leave that stitched border white. It's more of a cream, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, just the nature of this particular cardstock. It is white, but it's a creamy white. I'm leaving it white, and so I don't want to accidentally get that color on the frame. So I will constantly be making sure I'm keeping my work surface clean with that microfiber cloth. Any water that gets on the desk or on the cutting mat, as well as the marker. And you can really see I'm not doing neat coloring at all. It's more of laying down that dark color, laying down my light color, and then we're going to get that beautiful coloring, all over coloring with our water brush pen. This is a very quick and easy way to add a super pretty background. I have some other ideas for this leafy cover. I think this is just a beautiful die, and I'm really excited to share some other ideas with this coming up soon. And other ways to color it. Another idea, and something I've done in the past, and one of my favorite techniques, is to take masking tape and mask off the borders, and then you can always use a blending brush, an inking tool, and use distress inks, your favorite coloring tools, dye inks, anything you want to use there really to color in those leaves. I think another idea that would be really, really fun is to do these in rainbow color. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Wouldn't it be really neat to go around the entire edge and do rainbow leaves? I know that isn't actual quote-unquote leaf color, but I think it would be a really fun look. Once this is all colored in, I am going to set this to the side to completely air dry. It's only going to take a few minutes. You'll also notice that there are some die cut areas in those leaves that I've left in place until it dries, and then I'll pop them out. On a scrap piece of smooth white cardstock now, you could use any cardstock. You could use even watercolor cardstock, but I just had this scrap piece. It's a little smaller than A2 sized. The leafy cover does die cut A2 sized. This will fit back behind the opening though. I am using Hero Hues Reactive inks in Splash and Pool Party to create my blue sky background. I'm using some Gina blending brushes to add that color to the background. I wanted something nice and bright and blue that the kind of limey greenness of these leaves is going to pop on, and really showcase our cute koala hugs images. I added splash at one long side of the background and pool party on the other, and then I will pull more splash up to fill in that white area kind of in the center then. I want the entire background to have color. Now these are reactive inks, so if you wanted to incorporate some water, maybe splatter some water droplets or something on here, you could do that now. I opted to keep mine kind of clean and simple, and we're not going to be spraying this or spritzing with water at all. Once I have all of the ink blended on here, I am going to take some very thin 1/8 inch double-sided adhesive and adhere this all the way around, or apply this all the way around the border of my leafy cover frame. I'm not going to put adhesive back behind any of the leaves, and that is for a very specific reason. I could always add that later if I wanted to. I actually didn't for this card. I want to be able to tuck my koalas in and around the leaves. And if you adhere them down, it's going to be really hard to do. So that's why I'm keeping that adhesive only to the border. I am using the Spellbinders Tool-in-One to quickly and easily remove any of those little die cut pieces from the leaves. It is completely dry now, so it's going to be super easy to pop all of these out. I like how you can see a little bit of blue back behind. You could always leave them in as well. They did die cut all the way. They just are kind of small, so they stuck in that space. If you like the look of that, you could always leave those in there. It was really important for me to find where I want my tree branch koalas to go, and they're both going to go kind of more up towards the top. I played around with several different placement ideas, and I am adhering these with liquid adhesive. You'll notice I'm using some Spellbinders tweezers to hold that guy down in place. If I'm gluing anything over a leaf, at times it can be kind of hard to get it adhered really well. So placing something heavy on top or using some tweezers is helpful. By adhering my koalas hanging from branches up near the top, and then I have a couple of cuties sitting down here along the bottom of the frame, it kind of naturally gives me a good spot for a sentiment. Normally, I would stamp and emboss the sentiment first. I really wish I had, but I did not, and I'm going to show you how I made it work anyway. I am adhering my embellishments, which again, I should have waited till the last, but I was excited to see how these were going to look on my card. These are the Trinity stamps, Hint of Mint hearts. I love them. They do have that hint of mint, of course. These are the more, I would say, opaque hearts. There's also more of a translucent mint heart. I used these opaque ones. They're kind of more of a frosted kind of look, so that you would get more of the color and not so much of the background. I'm going to use a powder tool where I'm going to adhere my sentiment. I am stamping Sending You Squishy Hugs. And I'm going to stamp it a couple times. I'm using this Stamper's Secret tool to help get a good, nice, even pressure with my MISTI. And then instead of white embossing powder, I'm using some of the cream Simon Says Stamp embossing powder. I am really loving the cream embossing powder right now, and I think it works especially well with this Arches watercolor cardstock. I'm being really quick with flipping my panel over, so I'm hopefully not getting a ton of embossing powder tucked all underneath the leaves. That seemed to work pretty well. Then I can just take this paper out of my MISTI and simply funnel it back into the jar. I'm going to heat both the front and the back of the panel. I did have a little bit of warping. As my panel is still warm, I'm going to try to bend that back in shape and then adhere it to a white side fold card base to finish the card. One last thing I'm going to do to add a little embellishment to my sweet little koala images is take some glossy accents and add that to their noses. It's going to give a little bit of depth and dimension to those noses, which I think is really sweet and cute. It also makes them nice and glossy. So here is our card, and you can see I'm kind of bending it back and forth, trying to get rid of a little bit of that warping. I just love the green and blue with the beautiful neutral of the koalas. I'm getting some little air bubbles in my glossy accents. I actually ruined my fine tip applicator, which I have not done in so long. So I have a new one that I just need to pop on here and I haven't done yet. I'm using the tip of my tool-in-one to pop an air bubble in the glossy accents on that little nose there. Now, while my glossy accents is drying, I decided to create a coordinating envelope. I know I probably sound like a broken record since I have been doing this for pretty much most of my cards lately, but I love it. I am simply taking the hanging koala images from the Koala Hugs stamp set and stamping them on this metallic green Simon Says stamp envelope with a Stazon ink. I use Stazon ink. It's going to stamp a nice white outline without embossing. I love the look of an embossed image on an envelope. However, it warps the envelope when I heat it. I have really struggled with keeping my envelopes nice and flat when adding embossing powder. And so I kind of switched to using the Stazon ink if I want it to be a white outline image. Plus, these particular envelopes, they are metallic, meaning they have a sheen to them. And I have found a lot of ink will bleed on them. It's not like a flat cardstock envelope, and so Stazon is kind of my go-to there. So we've got the images on the front of the envelope. It kind of naturally frames up an area to write the recipient's name, plus leaves plenty of room for the stamp in the corner. And then on the back flap, I am going to stamp another sentiment from the stamp set that says hang in there, because I think it's cute and it coordinates obviously with those hanging koala images. And again, stamp that with the white Stazon ink, and that is going to give us a perfectly coordinated set. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this Koala Hugs Tombow dual brush marker card featuring the Mama Elephant April 2021 release products. The supplies I used to create my card and envelope are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here is another video featuring Mama Elephant products that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new card making video. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.